The evening breeze swept across the grand compound of the Okafers, carrying with it the murmurs of neighbors who had gathered under the mango tree across the street. Their voices were low, but every word felt sharp enough to pierce through the thick walls of the mansion inside. Ida sat at the edge of her bed, her fingers clutching the hem of her wrapper so tightly that her knuckles whitened. 30 years old, married for 7 long years to her husband, Chek, yet her womb remained empty. No child's laughter had ever filled their home. No baby's cry had broken the silence of the night. She could almost hear the voices of her friends in Kechi, Yuju, and Amora, women she had once laughed with, dreamed with, all now mothers. Their children called her Auntie Ades with innocent voices, but to her, every syllable was a reminder of her own barrenness. The sound of heavy footsteps interrupted her thoughts. The door creaked open, and there, standing tall and stern, was Mama Chek, her mother-in-law. Her eyes, cold and unforgiving, scanned Ades from head to toe. So you're just sitting here again? Mama Chek said, her voice laced with disdain. 7 years. Ades, 7 years in my son's house, and still nothing. Not even a miscarriage. Tell me, what use are you to this family? Ades' lips trembled, but no words came out. She lowered her gaze, trying to fight the tears threatening to escape. Mama Chek stepped closer, her wrapper swaying angrily as she spoke. Do you know the shame you have brought to me? Other women are carrying their grandchildren proudly, but me, I cannot even boast of one. People whisper behind my back, asking if my son married a woman or a piece of wood. The words cut deep. Ades felt as though the floor beneath her was crumbling. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to remind Mama Chek that it was God who gives children, not man, but her voice betrayed her. Silent, locked behind her tears. Just then, Chek walked in. His eyes weary from a long day at work, he glanced at his mother, then at his wife. The tension in the room was heavy. Chek. Mama Chek barked, how long will you waste your life with this barren woman? My friend's daughter just gave birth to twins. Maybe it is time you consider a second wife before it is too late. Ades' heart shattered. The words echoed in her ears, and for the first time, she wondered if her marriage was strong enough to withstand the storm that had only just begun. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant cry of a baby from a neighbor's compound, a cruel reminder of what she longed for but did not have. And that night, as Ades lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, one thought refused to leave her mind. Was her place in this family already doomed? The next morning, Ades rose before dawn. She moved quietly around the kitchen, the clatter of pots softened by her careful hands. Cooking had become her shield, a way to hide her pain behind the fragrance of food. But even as she stirred the pot of yam porridge, her mind replayed Mama Chek's words from the night before. Maybe it is time you consider a second wife. By the time Chek walked into the dining room, Ades had already set the table. He greeted her with a faint smile, but his eyes avoided her. She knew that silence well. It was the silence of a man caught between his mother's voice and his wife's tears before they could speak. Mama Chek stormed in, her face set like stone. She carried herself with the authority of a general delivering a final command. Chek, she began, dropping heavily into a chair. I have made my decision. I will not sit back and watch my lineage fade away. Yesterday, I visited my friend, Madame Ebel, and she told me her niece, Anya, is ready for marriage. She is young, fresh, and fertile. That is the kind of woman this family needs, not a barren tree wasting space in my son's house. Ades froze, the wooden spoon still in her hand. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as her vision blurred with tears. She wanted to scream, to defend her place as Chek's wife, but the words stuck in her throat. Mama Chek snapped, his voice rising for the first time. This is my marriage. Onions, or whoever it is you are talking about, forget it. Ades is my wife, and I will not take another. But Mama Chek only scoffed, slamming her hand on the table. Your stubbornness will be your downfall. Chek, when you are old and childless, do not come crying to me. This family must have an heir, whether you like it or not. I will see to it that a second wife enters this house. Her words hung in the air like a death sentence. She stood abruptly and walked out, her wrapper rustling against the tiled floor, leaving a heavy silence behind Chek's side. Rubbing his forehead a daze, he whispered, finally meeting his wife's tear-filled eyes. Don't let her words break you, you are my wife. And nothing will change that. But even as he spoke, Adis felt the walls closing in. She could hear the whispers already forming in the neighborhood. Chek's mother is bringing a second wife. Adis' days are numbered that night. As the crickets sang outside and the compound grew quiet, Adis lay awake. Her heart pounded with fear. But somewhere beneath the pain, a spark of determination flickered. If Mama Chek wanted to push her out, she would have to fight harder than ever to protect her marriage and deepen her chest. Adis made a silent vow, I will not let anyone take my place. It happened so suddenly 3 days after Mama Chek's threats. The compound gates swung open and a slim, light-skinned young woman stepped in, her wrapper tied high on her chest. A small Donamusco bag balanced on her head. Her name was Onion, the chosen one, Mama Chek. Followed behind her like a queen unveiling her prize, she clapped her hands together as she announced to the startled housemaids, from today, Onion is part of this family. My son must have children, and if one woman cannot do it, another will better to wives than a barren house. Adis stood frozen by the veranda, her heart racing. She could hardly breathe as Onion flashed a sly smile, her eyes sweeping over the compound like she already owned it. When Chek arrived that evening, his face hardened. Mama, what is this? He demanded, glaring at Onion's luggage in the sitting room. But Mama Chek only adjusted her head. This is your salvation, Chek, whether you like it or not. Onion will give me the grandchildren that Adis has failed to provide. Adis' chest burned, but she held her tongue that night. As laughter drifted from Mama Chek's quarters where Onion stayed, Adis locked herself in her room and wept until her pillow was wet. Days later, Adis began feeling strange, her body weak, her appetite gone, her mornings filled with nausea. At first, she thought it was stress, but when the symptoms grew worse, she decided to visit the hospital quietly. The doctor's words nearly made her collapse. Congratulations, Madame Adis. You are 2 weeks pregnant. Tears spilled down her face as she clutched the test results. After 7 long years, her womb had finally opened. She wanted to scream, to dance, to run home and tell Chek. But instead, she folded the paper neatly and tucked it inside her wardrobe. She wanted her husband to be the first to hear it. Face to face that evening, she waited patiently in the sitting room, her hands trembling with excitement. But Chek was delayed at work. Onion, dressed in a fitted blouse and wrapper, walked past her with a smirk. She had overheard Adis humming softly to herself, and suspicion clouded her face later that night. As Adis stepped out to fetch water, Onion sneaked into her room. She ransacked the wardrobe, and there it was, the pregnancy test result. Proof of Adis' miracle. Onion's eyes widened. Pregnant, she whispered bitterly, her hands shook. But then a dark smile curved her lips. Not if I can help it. The next morning, Adis found her food already served on the dining table. The jollof rice smelled rich and inviting. But as she lifted the spoon, something about the aroma felt wrong. Her stomach churned. Just as she was about to taste it, a maid rushed in with panic on her face. Madam, the maid whispered urgently, glancing at Onion, who was pretending to sweep. Don't eat that food. I saw her pour something inside. Adis' blood ran cold. She dropped the spoon, her hands trembling violently. Onion looked up, her fake smile fading into a hard glare. For the first time, Adis realized she was no longer just fighting her mother-in-law's hatred. She was fighting for her life and the life of her unborn child. The night was tense. The compound was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that carried hidden storms. Dinner was served, and everyone gathered around the large dining table. Chek, Adis, Mama Chek, and Onion. The aroma of fried rice and stew filled the room. But Adis' stomach twisted with unease. She remembered the maid's warning from earlier that day. As Chek lifted his spoon, Mama Chek's sharp eyes darted toward Onion. Is something about the way Anya shifted nervously in her seat caught her attention. "Wait," Mama Chike said firmly, her voice slicing through the silence. Everyone froze. "Onion, since you are the one who helped in the kitchen tonight, you will taste this food first." The room went cold. Onion's face drained of color. She forced a laugh. "Mama, I'm not really hungry right now. Maybe later." "Eat it now," Mama Chike snapped, slamming her palm on the table. "Or do you think we don't know your heart?" "Taste it in front of everyone." All eyes turned to Onion. Her hands shook as she lifted the spoon. But before she could put it in her mouth, tears spilled down her cheeks. "I can't," she cried, dropping the spoon with a clatter. "I put poison in the food. I wanted a days to eat it," and she stopped, her voice breaking and lose her pregnancy. The room erupted in chaos. Chike sprang to his feet, his face twisted with rage. "Pregnancy," he shouted, turning to Adaze. Adaze froze, her lips trembling, slowly with tears streaming down her cheeks. She nodded. "Yes, I found out just yesterday. I wanted to tell you tonight." The revelation hit the room like thunder. Chike's knees buckled, and he clutched his head. My God, after all these years. At that moment, the front door burst open. Uncle Okafor, Chike's uncle, the very man who had supported Mama Chike in bringing Onion, stormed in, having overheard the confession from outside. His face was red with fury. "You devil," he roared, pointing at Onion. "So this is why you came into this house? To destroy, to kill, to poison my daughter-in-law and her unborn child." He turned on Onion with blazing eyes. "You are wicked, more wicked than a snake." Adaze sat in shock, her hands trembling. For the first time since her marriage, she heard Mama Chike's voice rise, not against her, but in her defense. "Onion," Mama Chike thundered, her wrapper shaking as she advanced on the girl. "You tried to kill the only child God has finally planted in this family's womb. You are a curse. I regret ever bringing you here. Get out of my house before I do something unforgivable." Adaze gasped, unable to believe her ears. Her mother-in-law, the same woman who had called her barren, useless, and shameful, was now standing between her and death. Chike rushed to Adaze, pulling her into his arms. "I'm sorry," he whispered hoarsely, his eyes wet. "I should have protected you from all this. From today, no one will ever come between us again." Onion fell to her knees, begging, but Uncle Okafor dragged her out by the arm. "You will leave this compound tonight," he barked as the door slammed shut. Silence filled the room once more. Mama Chike turned to Adaze, her eyes softer than they had ever been. "My daughter," she said in a trembling voice, "forgive me. I was blind with bitterness. I wanted grandchildren so badly. I forgot that it is only God who gives children. You are carrying the light of this family now. May God keep you and your baby safe." Tears spilled down Adaze's face as she knelt at her mother-in-law's feet. "Mama" was all she could whisper. That night, as she lay in her husband's arms, Adaze felt something she had not felt in years. Peace. The storm had finally broken, and from its ruins came the promise of new life, new love, and a new beginning. The empty cradle would no longer remain empty. 9 months later, the Okafor mansion was no longer filled with whispers of sorrow or threats of a second wife. Instead, the walls shook with joy, prayers, and celebration. Adaze's cries of labor echoed through the hospital, with Chike gripping her hand tightly, sweat running down his forehead. Mama Chike paced the corridor like a soldier awaiting news from battle, clutching her rosary, muttering prayers under her breath. Hours later, the doctor emerged with a wide smile. "Congratulations. It's not just 1, not 2, but 3 beautiful babies, 2 boys and 1 girl." The entire family erupted in praise. Chike fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "Thank you, Lord." Mama Chike raised both hands to heaven, her voice breaking with gratitude. "The God of Abraham has remembered us." From emptiness to abundance. When Adaze finally held her baby's tiny faces, soft cries, little fists curling, her heart swelled with joy. She had never known the years of shame, the insults, the nights of tears, all melted away in that moment. The empty cradle was not only filled, it overflowed. Mama Chike knelt before Adaze, tears in her eyes. "My daughter, forgive me. I wronged you. I was blind with pride and fear. But God used you to bless this family beyond measure of days. Weak but glowing with joy, reached out and took her hand. Mama, it is over now. What matters is love. And these children are proof that God's time is always the best final lesson. Life is not measured by how quickly blessings come, but by how faithfully we endure the waiting. Adi's story reminds us that delay is not denial when the time is right. God turns tears into laughter and shame into honor. Patience, faith, and love conquer bitterness. And no matter how dark the storm, the sun will shine again. The Okafor family learned that day that children are a gift from God, and His timing is always perfect. If you are watched this video till the and don't forget to hit subscribe and stay with us for more inspiring and powerful stories.